So, good afternoon and a warm welcome to all. Uh, on behalf of the Women and Young Members Excellence Committee at ICI, I extend warm welcome to all of you to the Youth Excellence Synopsis series. This series is conducted by the committee to share technical updates, enhance non-technical skills, and encourage our members to confidently express themselves in public forums. This initiative aims to upskill and inspire our members to move forward and make the most of their abilities. This series is conceptualized by CA chairperson by chairperson of Women and Young Members Excellence Committee, CA Preeti Savlaji, who is also a chairman of Sustainability Reporting Standard Board and vice chairman of Valuation Standard Boards for the year 23-24, and vice chairman of Women Youth Members Excellence Committee, CA Abhay Chacharji, who is also a chairman of Commercial Laws Economic Advisory and NPO Cooperative and vice chairman of Accounting Standard Boards for the year 23-24. Youth Excellence Symposium not only aims to provide essential updates on technical knowledge, but also to foster non-technical skills. We aim to empower and inspire our members to confidently step up onto the public stage and excel in their verbal expression. Today's session in Youth Excellence Innovation holds the promise of enlightenment, as well as we explore the topic of the startup journey today. So, with this, let me introduce the speaker for today, CA Ashutosh Pathakji. He is a chartered accountant. He has wide experience of more than 5 years in different industries, ranging from e-commerce, logistics, and supply chain, merchant banking, and has also worked in a big four firm, startups, international IT companies. He has robust experience in understanding business processes, establishing internal control processes, internal audit, ITGC audits, and business automation. At Longshot, Ashutosh leads technology, innovations, business automations, integrations, and is involved in continuous process improvement, including non-tech business processes. He also provides technical support to operation team from time to time. With this, I would like Shri Ashutosh product Ashutosh Pathak to share his journey on the startup journey. Uh, Welcome, Ashutosh. Uh, Sir, you are on mute.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Hardik, for this warm introduction. And let me just present my screen and just tell me when you are able to see the screen.
Sure. Yeah. Uh, we are
It's
able to.
visible?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would like to thank Women and Young Members Excellence Committee for organizing this session. And I would like to thank coordinators for bringing or giving a brief introduction about me and about the committee. And I'm really honored to be here and present you something really interesting about the startup journey. So today's topic, that is startup journey, is I would be sharing our own personal experience that me and my friend Ram has co-founded two different companies. So the first company didn't reach its full potential, or we imagined that it would be a successful one, but it didn't go that way. And with the first startup, we had a lot of learning in between, and based on those learning, we worked on those problems we had, and then we launched a successful startup, which is running today as it's really successful as of today. And this presentation is not a normal presentation like you will find a corporate template. This is more in the story format. So we will be sharing our journey in the startup, like what we faced when we were starting the first startup, and the roadblocks we had and milestones we achieved, and then finally when we failed, then we had a lot of learning which we all used to achieve something really extraordinary. And one more point I want to add, that we don't see a lot of chartered accountants disrupting the tech world. And it felt really concerning when I thought initially that ClearTech's founder should be a chartered accountant. I thought that, but the reality is he is an IITian. He's IITian. So the problem is the tech world or the people coming from tech world are disrupting our industry like clear taxes into taxation and related services. But I must say, like the chartered accountant should take this seriously, and I hope today's session inspire some of the people in our community and they embark upon the journey of a startup. So before I can start the story, let me introduce you about the platform, the startup which I'm talking about, so that you understand what it takes to build a startup like this. So Longshot is a platform which connects service professionals like chartered accountants, CSME qualified, CA students, MBA in finance and graduates, that is BCom graduates. So we connect them to the consulting firms all over India, consulting firms, CA firms, or direct corporates. So we get professional assignments for them. As of now, we have 15,000 plus members in our platform registered as of date, and like we are into every stage. So this startup is all about network. So we are a platform where we are connecting two different entities, or like entities to individuals. So we are in all the states right now. Plus the coverage is into, or like you'll see the numbers are going beyond 1000, but what we have tried to do over the period of time is to go remote also, to go to small cities and find the skilled professionals so that they can do the assignment for corporates all over the country. So what the platform offers is the short term assignment. So whatever comes below 30 days will fall under the short term assignment. So short term assignment is you can see, or you can like for example, I can say that a person who's looking for stock audit for a day, or maybe a checklist based audit for 4 to 5 days, or maybe the person is deployed in a manufacturing plant from the consulting firm for 10 days to do a physical verification. So all this category falls under short-term assignments. And then what is long-term assignment? Long-term assignment is all the assignment going beyond 30 days to 12 months. So let's say there is a person whose requirement is coming from, let's say, Big Four, and they want around, like they want a person to work in financial reporting for say 3 months when the time comes in that part of the year. So we find that person through our platform, and we deploy that person for 3 to 4 months. So that category is a long term assignment. And then later, because we had a really good network of people into this section of like into finance, we have so many professionals, so we thought of also adding another you can say category, that was permanent jobs. So before really going into the startup journey, I want to show you one video. So just try to like observe this and relate it to the startup, how the startup works. It will resonate to startup, so you need to be like observant to understand what is going on in the video. So I'll just play that for you. Okay, so basically this video is about, you have a objective or a problem to solve in a startup. So you see this wall is pretty much big at this in the startup. When you see a big problem, it seems that this is so difficult to solve. Then you try to take the first step. and then you think, okay, this is kind of it feels that this can be solved. Then you take the first step and put all your efforts, and then you fail. And then again you start, and you, with more efforts, you again go back and try that thing, but again you are like missed by the mark. And then again you put more efforts this time, and you push so hard that things change, and the reality or reality bends, and you move on and surpass the failure and really succeed. So this video was kind of resonating to startup journey. So now let me introduce to our first startup, the failed startup. So every startup, which is the first startup of an entrepreneur, is a dream. So for us, the dream was to connect laborers to the opportunity. That is, like we were connecting laborers in the freight industry, specifically the loaders and the unloaders. So these were people who will get work from manufacturing companies, because there will be loading, unloading taking place. Then the warehouses, or to the transporters. So they will be giving work to the laborers. So the idea was to connect these two different groups, like the service providers, like manufacturing entity, warehouses, transporters, to individual laborers. So that was the idea, because I was into logistics segment, and it was like during that point of time when I was interacting with the warehouses, I could see the laborers were able to use a smartphone in Mumbai and then in Kerala. So, and the amount or the size for this particular industry is pretty much big, and it is very inefficient. So the initial plan was to come up with the application where we can connect these two groups, and we can benefit to this segment of the society. So the idea was basically to connect all the laborers directly to the source. Reason being, like in the labor market, the reality is there is a lot of gap in terms of per man day fees. So when there will be a labor shortage, then the price might go up to 1,000 per day. But when there is a labor supply, high in supply, then there the price will go around 300 per man day. So you see there is a lot of gap because of inefficiencies in this particular market. And so we thought that one is that there are inefficiencies, and then we have a really big market in India where we can disrupt this industry. And it felt really logical to go and do a startup into this segment. So the first challenge which comes for a chartered accountant or people coming from commerce background is that they don't have good competency, or they don't have any competency in terms of executing the tech part of the startup. And startups have the competitive advantage due to technology they bring in. And for chartered accountants or people in our community, will always have problem to, like, whenever they think about the startup, the next thing will be like how they can solve this tech part of the startup. So for us, it took around 2 to 3 trials, and finally we reached our goal. But I'll tell you the story, how it happened. So for the first time, we went to you can say a small group of people who actually works for startup for equity stake. Okay, or they will take money to do the tech part of your startup. So we was like Ram's friend referred him to the people he was knowing. So we went back to that team. So these were like 3 individuals who were a kind of freelancers. So we went back to them to show them the presentation, like what our idea is. And when you come from this chartered accountancy, you have a lot of credibility because you have achieved something. Plus we had our own like we gave them the idea. They were pretty much convinced. We had planned how to execute it, and everything was presented in a well manner to them. So they were convinced that okay, they will be able to work. But when we sat down for the equity part, so what happened, we actually offered them a very ridiculous percentage of equity. So we had our own logic for that. We thought, okay, tech is something, because this is an insane idea, and if this grows, it's a $1 billion industry in India itself. If we are able to disrupt this, so the tech part will be like, once we have the application ready, we will get the funding, and things will move smoothly after that. So we had that kind of logic. And in absolute terms, if these people are getting 2% equity, then they will have in absolute terms like the amount of money will be pretty much huge. So we offered like only 2% to them. And you know what was the counter offer coming from them? The counter offer was unexpected, and they offered 50% equity. And without that, anything less than that, they will not be working in terms of equity. So we have to make the payment. So not to mention that we didn't agree and we never talked again. So that was our first trial to find the tech co-founder. And many chartered accountants will definitely have this problem to go and find the tech co-founder. So the second trial was Ram's brother is a NIT pass out, but he is a developer into Java. With Java, you are not able to make Android app. Okay, you cannot make it directly with the Java. So the right language is Kotlin. So he was lacking that skill, but his friend, Ram's brother's friend, he was having some internship experience in Android development, and he was very talented, no doubt. So we agreed with the structure that Ram's brother and his friend will take 5% equity each, and Ram and I will hold like 45% equity each. So we started with that, and after few weeks, like we were the people who were making the design of the app, how the workflow will be of the app, and we were giving them the structure to do the coding. And the timelines were decided that after 2 to 3 weeks, this much should be over. But what was happening after that, that like we were giving them timelines, because when you have come from a rigorous course, because we started a startup only after a year of our chartered accountancy final exams, or like when we cracked it. So we were having work ethic to do things on time, and for them timelines were being extended from time to time, and that was something very concerning for us. So what happened, I had a dispute with the person, that like Ram's brother's friend. So I had a dispute with him that the things are not moving around and you have to do it. So he thought that we were like bossing around. Okay, and with that dispute, he left the startup. So again, we were left with three people. Again, like two non-tech people and one tech person who don't know Android application well. Like he don't have any experience. He can learn and do that way. But doing that way would have taken so many days to come up with the final version of the application. So we need to crack that part of finding a tech co-founder who can like help Ram's brother to do this Android application, because this tech was all about connecting laborers to the contractors to the service providers through the application. So this was the problem with us. So we went on to LinkedIn, sending messages one by one to all the Android developers in Mumbai. And Mumbai, we also had some call with few people, but they didn't agree. Like they liked the idea, they didn't agree the equity part, and somehow like we managed to find one person in Pune. So like we discussed with him, and he was finally agreeing to 5% equity, and the structure finally was 5% equity to both the tech co-founders, and 45% equity will go to Ram and 45% equity to me. So final structure was something like this: two people coming from non-tech and two people from tech. So non-tech was me, like both chartered accountants. So we were there to design the app, like what will be the UI, what will be the workflow, where we will reach if we will click this button, what will be in the menu, what functionalities or features will be in the app. And we were going to Bhiwandi, that is the like the biggest number of loading unloading laborers will in India will be in Bhiwandi. So I was having some connect due to my experience in this logistics company. So I was able to interact with the warehouse people and also interact with the laborers working there. So me and Ram would go on weekends to work on that. Okay. And we would take the insights on the ground to understand what is the real problem, and then put that all in the application. And that application was being given to the tech. So one was the front end developer and the second one was the back end developer. So this was the structure. So with this we started, and then the real part of the startup came. So for startup you can like remove one of the ingredients but not hard work. So if there would be no hard work, there would be no startup in the world. So this part is immensely important. When you do startup, you have to work super hard. So for us, days were something like this. So me and Ram, I was working with a logistics company, and Ram was working in a bank during that time. So our weekdays would look something like this. We would go to office 10 a.m. in the morning and come back around 6:30. And after that, we would take a break, small break, and then again you have to go from 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. in the night. So you have to work neck to neck almost. So these were like weekdays when we have to manage both office and the startup. And weekends would be like this. Like on Saturday and Sundays, we would work round the clock. So like this was this particular structure we follow for next 9 months. And this was like all the hard work we did for 9 months. And finally the date came for the app launch. That is our first startup app which would be tested on the ground. So initially the plan was to launch the application in Bhiwandi because they at that place we have so many warehouses and laborers. But the app launch was somewhere around June 2020. So there were restrictions due to COVID to travel in Mumbai or like intrastate plus within Mumbai itself. So we were not able to launch there, and we finally launched the app near Indore, that is Pithampur. It's around 30 kilometers from Indore. So we launched our app here, and we were like pretty much excited because we did our part. We were building that perfect product which can be built for solving this problem, and we were pretty much excited that this will go like there are like so many laborers, and the market is huge, and there is labor shortage, so app will definitely have so much traction. So we were confident, and uh, we launched the app. But when we launched, what happened was this, that long shot labor failed. And I must say, in the like how Stefano Oliari said, that heard many times by many startups, but I feel like saying it again. All of the following happened to our startup. So why we failed? So the first reason why we failed was this the familiarity of the smartphones among laborers. Okay, so initially when we were doing a research at that point of time, it was kind of like 30% people are like using smartphones and the market size seems to be okay. But when we had the reality check on the ground, we could see that people were, the problem was, some most of the people will not have a smartphone. The next problem was, even the people who are having a smartphone, but the literacy rate amongst them is very low because they use all the voice commands and all to use phone. So they cannot use our app. Plus, the if they have a smartphone, the version of the phone was not compatible with the version which is now. The apps are pretty much big, so they were not able to download our application. So these were the problems we had with the smartphone. Second was very few or no orders coming from the vendor. So our startup was basically about connecting two different entities or groups. So Uber have to manage both the drivers and the riders. So both has to be managed, and otherwise, let's say if there are more drivers and no riders, then an app will not work. Okay, and if there are more riders and no drivers, then there will be a problem again. So at the inception of the startup like this, where we have a platform, you need to keep that balance. And for us, there were laborers. We registered like 200 to 300 laborers, but we were not getting orders because we were not having any network in that industry. Because in this industry, we were not having good experience in terms of like at least 5 to 10 years you have to be in an industry to create a network, and we were not having that, so we were not able to get orders. So let's say in day one, day two, day three, we registered like 300 to 400 people on our this application, but because of no orders, they would uninstall the app, and this was happening with us. So third was the groundwork which was required to go from 0 to 1. So we both were into full-time job. We cannot go on ground for say 6 months to test whether this startup will really be successful or not, or whether this will work or not, because this industry has a lot of inefficiencies involved. And when you don't have funds, you cannot risk of like, it is not logical to leave your job and do something which has a lower probability of going it right, because it was pretty much evident by that point of time that okay, if we have to at least try this, and the success rate is seems to be really low because there are a lot of problems, and if even if we leave our job, then it would not turn out to be a good decision. So probability was not in our hands. So like whenever you fail, it's painful, no doubt, but like anytime you fail, definitely you'll have that bad feeling for quite some time. But every failure or every time you fail, you get that incremental learnings, and we learned a lot from the first failure. So I want to share with you some of the learnings we had. The first one was the timing. So the success rate of startup is mostly depend on the timing. Okay, so for us, the timing was not appropriate. So we shouldn't have launched this app in 2020. I think so, or what we finally got, that it would take some more time, like 5 to 10 years more to for this industry to even handle a smartphone enough, so that a startup can come to this industry and finally make changes into that industry. So for us, the timing was a bad factor. And to if we study a lot of startups, and we see the major factor for the success of a startup is timing. Like 42% times the reason for the success is timing, and we say that we don't have or we didn't get any funding, and that's why we failed. And then comes the team execution, and then idea comes third, which we were valuing like so much, like putting a disparity in equity. So we were valuing idea too much. And then comes the business model, and last comes the funding. So whenever you hear from people saying that funding is most essential to grow, but as a fact, you see timing is the most important, and then you will come down to other factors. Funding comes the last. Then the next learning was network. Okay, so when you start a startup where you don't have funds, okay, I am talking about specifically this situation where you don't have resources and funds, you should start a startup in your network. Because without network, you will not be able to go from 0 to 1. And with us, that was happening. As I told you, that we were not able to get orders. Okay, so network is really essential when you do a startup and you don't have funds. So if you have funds, you can disrupt any industry. Like again, because Uber is kind of resonating to the kind of structure we were trying to create in a different industry. So when Uber was launched, so they were disrupting this industry because of lot of funding which was like received, or Travis Kalanick was having a lot of connections with angel funds and VCs. So there was a lot of money burned, and then only they have improved that inefficient taxi industry into something which is like helping everybody today. So network is like, you need to make sure that you do startup in your network when you like are going from 0 to 1 without funding. Third is the equity distribution. So equity distribution, when you're beginning a startup, and let's say you find like three people, and one come up with the idea, other will be more into tech thing, and the third person more into operations, and like you have whatever structure. But when in a startup new team is coming, you need to make sure that they have equal distribution. The reason is we learned it hard, because in the first trial of finding a tech co-founder, we gave like 2% equity. That was, we were naive, we were not really aware what works in a startup, but we were like chartered accountants, and we think about equity as a cost. It's a very high cost, so we thought in that way. But the suggestion is to have equal distribution. Even with the second trial, the person left because he felt kind of more inferior when he was getting like 5%, and the main founders were getting 45%. So that was the dispute. And even in the third attempt, when we had the final tech co-founders, the problem was that they were working with us, but they were not putting that much effort, the effort they should have put, because we were dependent on them, and they were the kind of drivers to come up with the tech part of the startup, which would be a competitive advantage. So they were having less motivation to work, and this happened with us. So it's a suggestion to have equal distribution. Even the VCs and venture capitalists will always look for the equity distribution in your startup when you go for funding. So you need to make sure or try to have equal distribution in the startup when you're beginning. I'm not talking about when the startup is in the growth stage. Okay, so when it is in the growth stage, you have already done some work. So the people who have started it, definitely they have more weightage, and then the other person comes in, and then there is a discussion part, and that is fair. But when you're starting a startup from zero, then you need to have a equal distribution. That is the suggestion. And this really came hard for us. Like, this was the biggest mistake we did of all. So we took 9 months to make that perfect product. Perfect in the sense, we researched everything. We were like going on the ground and checking with people whether this functionality is important or not, and we were discussing with the laborers their problems, and then we put everything in the first version of the application. So Reid Hoffman, who was the founder of LinkedIn, he said that if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you have launched it too late. And that happened with us. So it's the way you need to work on the product, because a startup is all about the product you are trying to bring and solve a particular problem. So the way you make the product is to come up with the minimal or the minimum viable product first, that will have the minimum features. Okay, it will have the basic functionalities, and then you can launch it. And people will come up with all kinds of suggestions. They might say that, okay, it's a bad product. Okay, you are also embarrassed, but that's the way every kind of product works in is created to the level of perfection. So you have to keep the minimum functionalities and then launch it, and then create a feedback loop from the customers or the clients, that okay, how it is working, and what more you can add. So you have to take that feedback and then incorporate in the product, so that incremental improvement will get you to the perfect product. With us, what happened, we were making for 9 months a product which we get to know after launch that it would not work. The best approach would have been to work on the product for 3 months, okay, and then launched it, and we would have saved 6 months. So that was really important, and we missed on that, and it was a lesson learned from our own experience. Avoid dependency on individual or team members. Okay, so make sure that every critical point of your startup, because for us tech was very critical, and most of the startups will have tech. For you it can be anything else, but you need to make sure that dependency on any individual or team shouldn't be there. Because when we were doing our startup, or working on the first product in the first startup, then we were dependent on tech team to come up with the deliverables, and they were stretching the timeline so much that we were literally begging them to like do it, because we can see that the level of motivation they had was less, okay, to work, and we were totally dependent on them. Without the product there will be no launch. So that kind of dependency is really painful, and you will not move in long term. Okay, so avoid dependency. You need to take control of things, and I'll explain you how we did it in the next startup in a while. Okay, so there were multiple mistakes we made, but there were certain things we did right in the first startup. That was like, we didn't spend any money on the first startup. Okay, so I remember in the initial days when we were having trouble finding the tech co-founder, so I said to Ram that let's contribute 50K each, or maybe it will be like 2 to 2.5 lakhs the cost of the first app. Let's spend that. But he said that we'll not be spending any money. And like, when we went through that journey, we realized that he was absolutely right about it. So when you are working on a startup, the problem is you don't know whether that will work or not. Okay, because you're trying to experiment something, and then the reality comes whether this thing is solvable or not. You are not after the stage of proof of concept. You are just trying to experiment something. So at that point of time, you shouldn't be spending any money. Okay, and also to add that who think like, there will be many people who will think that tech part is like, we can burn money initially, and later on we will have things replaced, or maybe the first version of the app is kind of fine. But I must say that if you're running a startup, then the tech thing will start from the beginning, and it will never end in the startup journey. Whatever it is, 5 to 10 years to come to IPO, if the startup is $1 billion startup, then to come to the IPO, tech will be most essential. So outsourcing it initially will not will not help. That structure most probably might not work. Okay, so at the beginning of the startup, you shouldn't be expending any money. So also, let's say you come up with a startup, you come up with a name, and people go and do that trademark registration, and you spend that money. You don't have to spend anything on compliance unless you know the startup is really working. And for Longshot also, we didn't take that trademark in the early days, but once it was working fine, then we took all the relevant trademarks, and we started expanding on compliance and all. So initially, when you don't know whether the startup will work or not, don't spend any money on that. Try to figure out how you can do it. Give some equity, and in compliance related cost can also be like, we are from the same community. It can be taken as a help from other members. So that way it will work. The second thing which we did right was we didn't get attached to the startup or the idea of the startup. So you might be seeing a lot of people coming on Shark Tank, and they come up with some crazy ideas which appears to be like, for them it's an emotional thing because they are attached with the idea, but it is evident that that idea might not work. So you need to detach yourself with the idea, and don't be so emotionally attached that you're working on something which is apparently will not work, and just because of your emotional satisfaction you are putting a lot of money and spending burning cash so that it works. So you need to be practical. You need to think whether things will work or not. And you see the people like who move on and then they try on the next thing, and that's the way it should be, and it should not be the other way around, to attach yourself to the startup. So we did this right, and we moved on. And then what we did was like starting all over. So I must say that starting all over again is not that bad, because when you restart, you get another chance to make things right. And this time what we did was a pivot. So we pivot from long shot labor to long shot assignments. So who don't know what is a pivot? Pivot is basically, a startup pivot is basically changing the company strategy because of changing market condition, or changing a scenario, or you are like changing the market itself, or there can be any circumstances like new opportunities coming in. So you pivot your startup into something else. So for example, I'll give you like two examples. One is Twitter, which is known as X now. So Twitter was earlier a podcast company, and during that time they were having a lot of competition coming from Apple iTunes, and they felt that their future is uncertain because Apple iTunes was already dominating market and they would be best in that. So they did a hackathon where they asked many people to join and come up with new idea. So there were many ideas shared, and they chose one that was micro blogging platform. And you know where Twitter is now, like it's kind of very famous these days. And every like people in the politicians and from every area, they are using the platform. So that was the story of Twitter. And there is another example for startup pivot, that is Netflix. So Netflix was earlier a DVD renting company kind of. So you have to go online and you have to rent a DVD. They will send it to your home, and once you watch, you have to give back and you have to pay the rental. That was the business or the structure of the startup, how that was working. So initially this worked, but later on when there were smartphone traction and the bandwidth of the internet increased, so people were more into streaming, online streaming of videos and content. They realized this and they finally launched their streaming platform. So you see Netflix, it's very much, people say that it's very addictive, and it is definitely. So this was the example of pivot. One more example to understand what is a pivot. So what did we change in our startup? So we changed, the first part was the network. The problem was then the first startup, we were not having network where we wanted to start. So network is really important to get the work in a platform kind of service. So for us, this time we started our company in our network, that is in the CA community, where people know us, okay, and where we can get orders. And the second thing was the startup which can go from 0 to 1 without investment. So we don't want to go in an industry to disrupt a very inefficient industry which cannot be moved without funding. So with funding only the needle will be moved. So that would be a problem, because unless you have the proof of concept, nobody will give you funding. And the third thing we did, right, like we changed was to work online, because we were having full-time jobs, so we could not work on the ground. So we need to find a startup which can start online. Okay, you cannot go on the ground and leave your job. So these three things we changed, and the idea of long shot assignment was born. So initially, the idea of long shot, like initial idea was to connect CA firms, consulting firms, corporates, and from the tier one cities to the professionals in tier two and tier three cities. So we had this idea to come up with 40 services, which normally a chartered accountant gives, like registering companies, having GST returns, tax returns, and then bulk MCA registrations. So all kinds of services. There were like 40 different services. So we wanted to take work from consulting firms, other CA firms, and corporates from bigger cities, and get the work for chartered accountants in smaller cities. That was the initial idea we had. But then we got first order. So there was a firm in Gurgaon. They gave us the first order to find a person in the outskirts of the Bhopal to go and do a physical verification. So we find a person in Bhopal, because we were a kind of platform to find the right professional to do this kind of audit. So to do the physical verification of asset, we found one person. He did the assignment in 10 days. Then we took the confirmation from the client in Gurgaon, and they said that they have received everything. Then we made the payment to the candidate, and then we billed it to the client in Gurgaon. Plus, Ram was having similar experience when he was into articleship, and he was also when he was preparing for CA final examination. So he was arranging people, like CA final students in his own city or cities near Indore, uh, to send them for the audit. And this, he was getting work from a firm outside Indore, like maybe from different state or different city. So they were asking him to arrange professionals and like CA semi-qualified or CA final students to do these kinds of audit. So he also had some experience into this. So we thought, like, since stock audits, surveys, physical verifications, and like banks also want to for credit and all, they also do this stock counting and all on a periodic basis. So and all the industry have stock all the time, like different industries will have. So stock counting appear to be a really big market. Okay, so we thought, let's begin with this. Like, we'll be doing all kinds of stock audits, physical verification, surveys at a pan India level, and let's make a platform where we can offer work to people in the remote parts of the country. So the initial service was to explain you. So let's say there is a firm in Mumbai. They have a client in Rachi, okay, and they have a manufacturing. The client has a manufacturing plant there, and the person has to go and do the stock audit. So earlier, what they would do is they would send their employee to do the stock audit or internal audit or checklist based audit. So they will they will have to expend on traveling, accommodation, and food cost. And also, because when we started the startup, that was the time during COVID, so travel was a risk because of COVID-19. And also there are scenarios where, when you have a client in Chennai, they prefer local language, and they might not know a common language. So there again, they have this hurdle when they send their own employees to maybe South India, where they have to work. So this happens sometimes, that they don't have a common language to communicate. So we worked on that, and we had this idea. So you don't have to send your employees to the location. We will hire a local person, a person qualified enough to do your job. We will find a chartered accountant or a CA semi qualified, whatever is your requirement, and then the training is provided by the CA firm or the consulting firm or the corporates who are into this. So they provide the training, and that person do the audit. So they are saving on travel, accommodation, and food. So what they have to make the payment for is only the person doing that work for that point of time. So they will pay on a man day basis. So this was the structure. And with this structure, we were like trying to connect the professionals to the entities. So this was the initial idea, and we started this time without a tech co-founder, because we now tested it without making the app. Okay, that was the thing. We learned and we did like this. So initially we did it like this. We were finding candidates by calling them via Just Dial. For example, you have a firm in Gurgaon or Delhi, and they ask you to find a person in Kolkata to visit a bank and do a kind of basic checklist based audit. Okay, so they want us to go and they want not us, they want the candidate to go and do the audit. So they ask us to find the right candidate. Initially, we were making calls by calling to chartered accountant firms in Kolkata. You used to go on internet, find all the people, and we were making like in an hour we would make like 9 to 12 calls, and we realized that this is one assignment we have to make 9 to 12 or maybe 20-30 calls, and only one person is agreeing to it. So why we have to do so many calls if we can like solve this problem in a different way? Because a person's capacity cannot be so much that he can talk all the day. Okay, so this was not efficient. So we started with a basic Google form where you will be registered, where we will tell you about a service and like this kind of assignments we bring, and if you are interested you register yourself, and then we will be calling you whenever any requirement comes from your location. So we were sending these registration forms on LinkedIn to people by trying to have a equal distribution throughout the country. And the people who were interested and agreeing to the terms were registering, and the process was to now call the people from that, the registered members, to do the assignment. And the third thing was we were making post manually. So let's say there is a requirement coming in the outskirts of Mumbai, maybe a city near Mumbai. Okay, so we used to make the post that this is the assignment, this is the date of the assignment, this is the location of the assignment, and we were spreading all over on WhatsApp, Telegram groups. So this was the humble beginning we had. But for 3 months we were not having any tech in our startup. We were just doing things with whatever help we could do, and we were calling people whenever there was assignment. But to scale a startup you cannot work without technology, and technology is the only way you create a competitive advantage in the startup world. And that's why the startup beats and improves the industry, and they have this X factor, which is pretty much required to break that industry. So you need to have a tech. Plus, we were not having any application. So how the long-term brand of Longshot will look like, because you don't have a common platform to apply. So we were trying to figure out what to do. So what we did was we went back to our old tech co-founders. So we went back to our tech co-founders and we talked to them and we said, okay, this time the startup is really working. We have a month-on-month turnover. It's profitable, and you can work on this, and let's make an app. Because we have a platform already, but we need to have a face of the company. But the failure, sometimes people take it so seriously that they were like, we also worked in the previous one but didn't work. We spent a lot of time but it didn't work, and they were not like they didn't have the perseverance to try it again. So they said no. Okay, and also we were having a bad experience. We had a bad experience with the previous tech co-founders. So the experience was like the talented ones were not hardworking enough, and the hardworking ones were not talented enough, and we had a lot of dependency on them to get the work done. So their motivation level might be low, and their work ethic was not so good. So we didn't want to create a dependency again. So what did we do was a journey from no tech to high tech, and finally we did something like this. So the structure was that Ram will look into the operation and I will be taking care of the technology part. Okay, and when you are not from a tech background and you see the lines of code, it's so difficult to understand. So in when we were launching the first startup, I tried first time to look over the Kotlin language, and that time we thought, okay, this thing, it's more logical, or it's the next thing you think that there are people or there are developers who can do this, and why should you be learning about the coding? But we learned it in a hard way, and we spent the first startup and wasted a lot of time, and our experience was pretty much bad with working with the developers. So this time we have to take the control. So I must say, when you have a problem to solve, which you tried like doing outsource and everything, and it is not solving, then you need to take the control in your hands. So I remember after 3 months, we have to come up with the app. So I went onto the internet for 7 days. I tried to read everything possible to come up with the application. I saw almost like so many videos on YouTube to understand like how can I come up with the application. So in 7 days time, I researched, and in the next 7 days time, I created the first prototype or the first version of the application, and I showed it to Ram. Like, this will be the kind of app, and he was pretty much impressed by like, okay, this is actually we can do it. So next 15 days we worked on the final functionalities, and I remember around July 2021 we launched our first version of the application. And this application today, as of today, it has around more than 20 to 25,000 downloads. So right now the top up will look like 10K plus, but it will be top up after some time, it will be 50K plus. So right now the current numbers are 20 to 25 what we see daily, and we track it. So I must talk about more about this here. This is the right time to talk about this. So when you're not coming from a tech background, and this is a problem, because the future is all about tech, and these days AI is also coming. So for the people who want to go into learning this tech part and they're having some friction, I'll tell you how we broke it was, we were having a startup to solve a problem. And the long term strategy says that if there is a repetitive task, you need to automate, because once you automate, you compound the time you save after you automate. So we were having a problem to solve, and you need to have a, because today on internet you will have everything for the solution. Even like, as of today we have AI, but before AI also everything is available in terms of tech to do coding. There is a Stack Overflow, there are so many resources. You have to just sit and work for hours to solve a problem. So I remember I used to sit on Friday evening, okay, and I used to work up to Sunday night, and I was taking no break, because I had to solve a problem within that point of time, and these problems were being solved. Okay, and because we have internet and we have all the resources, and as of today we have GPT technology that is given by OpenAI. So it is so good at coding that our efficiency at Longshot has increased like 10 times after that. So you don't have, if you want to code, take that 1500 to 1600 GPT plus GPT-4 and do the coding. Okay, it is pretty much good and it's insane. And if we are not changing or upskilling ourselves, in the future, eighth grade kid will be doing much better coding than you. Even his career might not be into coding going forward, because it is such an easy task these days after AI. So with all the, like, all the first step from starting from the first step into the tech part uh, of the world. From there, we started a very long journey to become a technology company. So earlier we were doing things in a traditional way, but then our company was more focused on becoming a technology company. So startup is all about solving problem day in, day out. So we started with calling people. Initially, we were making calls. Then we started having registrations on Google Forms. And then I created one app, uh, which will be the front of the long shot. And then we went deep into the technology. So we wanted to solve a remote problem. You want to find a person in Northeast Assam. So we have registered members there. Let's say we have, as of date, we'll have 100 plus members registered there. So you want to find those people. So this technology was like, we integrated it to Google Maps. It would point to the assignment location where the stock audit, physical verification, or any kind of audit to be done. It will scan all the people near 100 kilometers, and it will send them emails and WhatsApp. So this was integrated with our system. So we were now going deep into the technology. And then order to cash, like many chartered accountants work into this area of risk advisory, order to cash cycle. And the problem with us was, like, every location we have to issue a separate invoice. So let's say we get like 40 to 50 locations, we have to issue 50 invoices. And if you will focus on the administrative part, then who will focus on the operations part? Because in a startup you don't have many people. So we did like this, that end to end backend was integrated. So let's say there is a requirement coming for a location in Jammu and Kashmir, and you want a person to do the audit. So we will first put it in the app. It will go into the app, and then we will find the right person. Then we will add that person in the backend, in the system where we were recording everything. So this was through a backend app, okay, and that person will be added in the system. And once he completes the assignment, we will take the confirmation from the client, that is also tracked in the system. Once the confirmation is done, we will make the payment to the candidate, that is also tracked in the system. And once we make the payment, we will bill it to the client. And you have to just click two buttons after that, and it is all integrated with Gmail, and the mail will automatically go to the client. So this was end to end, you can say, our order to cash cycle was automated. You have to just put a very less number of data points were there. In the sense, most of the things were being captured at once, from the source to the final invoicing to the receipt of the payment from the invoice. End to end integration was done. So at the back end also was being automated, which will not appear at the front end of the app. So this was something which have saved a lot of time for Longshot. And then comes the marketing automation. So what we did was, we created a system, and it's so smart that, let's say we come up with you have a requirement in maybe in Chennai. Okay, so what you we go and post it on app. Okay, from the admin app we will post it. Now the system is smart enough to see that there is one particular assignment which has come, and it will take that assignment. It will check the location of the assignment, and it will see all the people's near 100 kilometers. Then it will create a batch of those people and send them emails giving them the details of the assignment. And people near 100 kilometers, if you find a person near to that location, let's say 5 kilometers, the chances of he doing the assignment is very high. And that's why the turnaround time is so less, like in 2 to 3 hours or less than that, we will get the person to be deployed. So it's a platform which is like turning around quickly. Plus, when you are creating assignment, you have to publish it on social media. So this system will go on Google Slides. It will create the post automatically without human intervention from the pre-structured templates we have, 18 to 20. It will put a random selection and it will create the post. Now it will go to LinkedIn and post it automatically, and then it will give you the link. Okay, so the end-to-end process was or is being done with the help of automation in Longshot. And we have been improving every part of the startup. So after a year, when we were running the one part of the company, like this stock audits and all successfully, then after a year we were getting requirements from the client that, okay, this is fine, you are giving people for 3 or 4 days or up to 15, 20, 30 days. What about bigger assignments? So the long term assignment was added as a category. So in this, as I told you, there will be let's say financial reporting assignment, or there will be assignment into SAP for 3 months. Okay, or your client might have a deputation for 3 months or 6 months or up to 12 months. So this was the category we launched. And initially we were taking CVs on WhatsApp. But the problem is, if you, let's say if you have 10 different assignments, and every assignment has 100 CVs, and that is like being flooded on your WhatsApp, you have to manually map those people to the assignment, and this was a very time consuming job. So these 100 CVs coming from assignment, uh, like, because this was taking this matching was taking a lot of time, so we came up with a WhatsApp chatbot. So this was done with the WhatsApp API integration we did in house. And with this, now there was a bot who will take the CVs, and it will be integrated to the Longshot Play Store app, and it will take the CVs of the candidate. Okay, another problem was that if one person applies today and let's say there's no chatbot, then the person applies again after 10 days, we have to ask his CV again because nobody goes to the previous chat and take, because there were so many people interacting at the same time. So this chatbot was doing this thing that it was taking the CVs of the candidate. Okay, so we were having a central database where all the CVs will be there. Now, for one assignment, we were, for example, getting 100 CVs. Now, the system was good that we know what people have applied for which assignment, but the problem was from those 100 CVs, Ram realized that around 50% people are just not reading the application or like not reading the eligibility criteria. Then he has to spend like 50% of the time into something which is a wasteful activity. So we added questions in the chatbot. We added shortlisting questions. So let's say we ask them, are you okay to do 6 months assignment? So the person, if he, because he was not reading the app, this time he reads the question and he says, okay, for 6 months I'm not interested, so he will choose no. And if he choose no, he will not be allowed to do the to apply for the particular assignment. And with this we have reduced the work 50% by adding shortlisting questions. But now let's say we have 10 different assignments and we have 50 CVs against each. Now a person capacity to shortlist an assignment in a day is maximum 100. Even a chartered accountant cannot go beyond 100 to shortlist a CV. And this was something, a hurdle for us. Then what we introduced was artificial intelligence in our company. So now these 50 CVs were being scanned by AI. Okay, now AI will give you top 10 CVs, or it will give you the reasons for rejection of 40 CVs, and it will just filter out out of 50 top 10 CVs, which will go to the human layer. That is the chartered accountant who would be finally shortlisting it to send it to the client. So, the journey was humble and it started with making manual calls, and we reached to artificial intelligence. And that is that was the journey. We had a humble journey from calling to artificial intelligence, and without outsourcing any part of the tech. We never outsource any part of the tech, and we do it in house, and it is being done by chartered accountants only. Okay, so there is nobody like there is no support. You go on the internet, you read about everything, you understand technology, and then you do it. And as of today, AI plays really important role in the day-to-day activities. So we have created one chatbot which can, like, if you ask the chatbot that go and generate the post for this assignment, so it will go and it will run functions and it will give you the link, a Google Drive link with the image. Okay, this is the assignment. Now you can spread it through social media and groups. Now, if you want to know the details of the assignment, you don't have to go on the app. You ask chatbot, okay, give me this assignment ID details, or you give me which location it pertains, which client it pertains. It will go and search that thing in the database, and it will come back. So in day-to-day activities, our employees are using these technologies to improve their efficiency. And when you save the time for the employees, then you are ultimately hitting that cost factor, and that will, in long term, you will have a very good competitive advantage. So what we made over the journey was a system driven company and not human driven. So from the day one, when we, like me and Ram, was working on Longshot, we always thought that we will be solving problems, not being dependent on people, because we want always to separate ourselves from the startup. We want the founders not to work, and the startup should run on its own without founders being involved in day-to-day activity. So we were so much focused on process, automation, and whatever technology we can use. And for 1.5 years, we were not having single employee. So we were coming with the problems, we were automating it there itself. Okay, it was so fast that we didn't have to hire in a single employee for 1.5 years. Okay, so this story of our startup is like super interesting, because this will tell you the extremes we went when opportunity come to us. So there was an assignment which was received from one of the top 3 companies in India, and the assignment was basically to do the stock audit, the physical verification of fixed assets, and then dispatch activity has to be observed. So this was the total structure which was required, but there were around 250 locations in India, out of which 14 firms, like in total 15 firms were hired, out of which 14 firms did 130 locations and only Longshot did 120 locations. So you see the power of network. Once you have that level of network, you can execute things at central India level. Okay, so we were doing 120 locations and the remaining 14 firms like did this 130 locations. And initially it was a 10 days assignment and we were told that you don't have to manage, because Longshot earlier was not managing audit. Now it is also managing audit. But during that point of time, we were just hiring people to go and do the audit. Okay. We were not managing it, like interacting with the candidates and doing the management. And after 10 days, we were told that you have to manage the audit. And that was a bigger concern for us because we were with 4 people in the company. So now 4 people has to manage 120 locations. And in each location, there will be at least 2 to 3 people going. So 4 people have to manage 250 people. So I would say that the day would look like this. 7 in the evening, we would like every day, 7 in the evening, we would call to everybody on the location, like these 4 people, and ask them the report, how much audit has been done. So one person is actually making calls to 60 people and getting the, you can say, completion of work. And then we have to combine all the locations work and make a separate report. So if one person is making 60 calls, and the efficiency or the human level efficiency in terms of sharing data, how much time it takes. So it was taking like from 7, we have to make so many calls, around 250 people we are calling, and it would take around 12 a.m. in the midnight to complete the report and send it across to the client. So this was the first problem. And then next day you have to arrange, again check with the people who went yesterday or like went the same day, or are they actually going the next day. So we have to check and communicate with them and check with them whether you are going or not. And out of 250 people, again around 160 would say okay, we'll go back again, but 90 people you have to arrange in the next 2 to 3 hours, because it's already midnight, you have to sleep. Okay, for next 3-4 hours we used to arrange those people. The problem was like at the night they might not respond. So next day everybody has to reach to the plant location, or not the plant location. This was the retail stores of the acquiring group. So they have to reach to the retail stores by 10 a.m. So when we sleep at 4 a.m. in the night, we have to wake up sharp 8:30, because we need to make calls so that we are sure that all the people are reaching to the location, the people who agreed, and the people who have not agreed, we need to find more people through Longshot platform. And then we need to make more calls if the platform is not able to fulfill the supply, because this was the biggest assignment of all. So from 8:30, we get to know around 10 that or 10 to 11, we get to know that around 30 locations are still vacant and people have not reached. From 10:30, you will again make calls and you finally manage to send all the people by 1 o'clock. And this was being done with a full-time job. And like all the people were into a full-time job, they were managing a startup, and we were hardly sleeping 4 to 5 hours. And the worst thing about this assignment was that even on the weekends, this used to, like, because it was a acquisition of a retail store from the biggest one of the biggest companies in India. So they were acquiring the retail stores, and that acquisition was a period. Initially they said it will be a 10 to 15 days assignment, but I don't know, like God was testing our extremes, and it went to 4 months. And I remember one of the common friend, Ram and I have. So he was his flatmate. So he called me and he sent me Ram's number, and he was sleeping with his phone like this. And whenever any call comes, so he just pick up and take that call, and he went back to sleep again. So he was hardly sleeping 1 to 1.5 hours. And he said to me, okay, so if this person works like this, he will die sooner or later. And that was like, Ram is a super hardworking guy. I've never met any person so hardworking, and he really worked hard in this assignment. I was detached after some time, after maybe 1 or 2 months, but he was there in this assignment, completing it end to end. So you see the level of hard work which is required whenever opportunity comes. And with this assignment, we completed 3,500 man days by 4 people, and managing a full-time job plus the startup. So it was a chaos, but we were at our extremes, and even we were not expecting that we can work so hard. And that was the test. When it comes, you have to be prepared. So for the people who always see the bright side of the startup, I must give you the reality check that what is startup all about. So startup is about working 7 days a week, no weekends. You cannot do party, you cannot take breaks, because that will like that will lose your motivation to work. Okay, if you're going on that doing parties and like taking breaks, then your motivation goes down. You need to have that motivation to work all the time. So there will be no weekends, no break, there will be no holiday. Okay, like no Raksha Bandhan or no Holi. So only holiday what we can see over the years is Diwali, because nobody works, even clients don't work, nobody works during that time. And no vacation. So you cannot go on trips after every 3 months, 6 months, or maybe a year. You have to skip a trip. Even if you have a burnout after working for 6 months so hard, then you are taking a vacation. But Himalayas and places without a network is not your thing. You have to always carry that laptop. And I remember I went to a trip after some time because of burnout or whatever the reason is. So I was driving, okay, and I got a call from the employee that the app has crashed or it's giving an error, it's not working. So I have to take my vehicle on the roadside on the highway, and I have to do that coding to improve it and make it work. And that's the way, like, you have to be always, you have to be ready for the startup to work. So if you are going on vacation, you need to carry laptop, and you need to be in network. You cannot go on any place in the network throughout the journey. And startup journey is long. Okay, it takes 5 to 10 years to really uh, do something worthwhile in a startup. Okay, so with hard work we reached to like 4x turnover every year. So we started with x turnover, we reached 4x the next year, and then we reached 16x the very next year. So this is the benefit of hard work you get when you work on a startup. So I have added a video of Shah Rukh Khan in this. I'm not a kind of a big fan of Shah Rukh Khan, but he said something really important which can be related to success and what I wanted to convey. And at this point of time, this is the best thing what I can show you right now. So let me know if you are able to hear. Mostly you will be.
अगर आपको सक्सेसफुल बनना है, कामयाब बनना है, तो ये दो चार चीजें हैं जो आपको नहीं करनी। एक तो खाना मत खाइएगा प्लीज। खाने में परेशान हो जाए, खाना खाना है, सोना है, आराम करना है। यू हैव टू बी, और मैं सच बोल रहा हूँ ये, तो जो जो बातें 5 स्टार होटल के स्पा में आपको सिखाई जाती हैं, रिलैक्स, टुंग टोंग टिंग टोंग टिंग टोंग, क्लोज योर आईज, और ये सब जो अच्छी लिविंग, हेल्दी लिविंग, गुड लिविंग, ये सबको त्यागना पड़ेगा। देयर इज नथिंग लाइक हेल्दी लिविंग, गुड लिविंग, स्लीप, फूड, आराम, रिलैक्सेशन, आंखों के ऊपर वो क्यूकम्बर लगा के खीरा वीरा, इससे कुछ नहीं होगा। अगर आपको सक्सेसफुल होना है तो आपको परेशान रहना है, टेंस रहना है, ब्लड प्रेशर होना पड़ेगा, सोना नहीं चाहिए, खाने की बिल्कुल तकलीफ नहीं होनी चाहिए। मैं तो कहता हूँ, मैं जो फर्स्ट आजकल घूमता हूँ, मैं चल रही है मेरी, मैंने आपको बताया मैं फर्स्ट क्लास प्लेन में ट्रैवल करता हूँ, वो जो रिक्लाइनिंग बेड होता है मैं उसको रिक्लाइन भी नहीं करता हूँ। So you cannot be restful and at peace if you want to be successful. And it's the truth, it's God's honest truth. आपको कोई और बात बता दे, मैं आपको दो चार बातें बताना चाहता हूँ जो जवान लोग हैं यहाँ पे, कि ये सोना आराम, आराम हराम है, कोई जरूरत नहीं है सोने वोने की, खाने पीने की। दूसरी बात, अगर आपको सैक्रिफाइस नहीं करना आता तो आप बिल्कुल कामयाब नहीं होंगे। जो आप इस वक्त हैं उसको त्याग कर जो आप बनना चाहते हैं वो ना कर सके। जैसे मैं बहुत लेजी हूँ, आई लाइक टू प्ले वीडियो गेम्स, बी विथ माय चिल्ड्रन, आई डोंट लाइक टू वर्क, आई लाइक टू राइट पोएम्स, आई वांट टू रीड बुक्स, आई वांट टू रिलैक्स, बट आई स्लीप ओनली फॉर 4-5 आवर्स, और मैं सुबह उठ के काम पे चले जाता हूँ। 6 पैक बनाना है तो वर्कआउट भी करता हूँ, आई हेट इट, बट आई सैक्रिफाइस इट ऑल। थर्ड, आपको दुख पहुंचेगा, दर्द पहुंचेगा, पेन पहुंचेगा, पेन चला जाएगा, सक्सेस इंतजार नहीं करेगा। तो दर्द होता रहे, बुखार होता रहे, जुकाम होता रहे, परेशान होते रहे, आपको सब कुछ करना पड़ेगा। तो ये सब बातें बेकार हैं। और जो भी आपको बोले कि यार आराम करो, जिंदगी जो है इज बियॉन्ड वर्क एंड ऑल, इट्स गुड इफ यू डोंट वांट टू बी सक्सेसफुल। आई फील एनवी and envious of people who relax and rest. I feel jealous of people who don't want to be successful, because success will not come unless you are completely restless. You have to be like that.
तो शाहरुख का मंत्र है कि सपना वो नहीं है जो आप नींद में देखते हैं, सपना वो है जो नींद उड़ा दे.
Okay, so this is exactly what it takes to be like successful. I just wanted to relate it to the startup. It's the reality. You have to work day in, day out. You don't have to think anything else. And it will have its fruits, but you have to be like you have to have perseverance. You have to be consistent. You have to work all the time. And that is the reality of startups.
आप अगर आप
Okay, so we have come to the final part of the startup journey, or the learnings we had from the second startup. So second startup was the major part where we spent last period of whatever time we had in startup. So major part was spent in the successful one. So we had a lot of learning during our journey when we were building the long shot assignments. So I would like to share with you our learnings from our second startup. So the first learning was that don't work alone, because startup will take like 5 to 10 years of your life, and if you don't have a partner, because normally the startup people do is around from the age of, let's say, 20 to the age of 40, and this is a crucial period of your time, of your life. So when you're doing startup alone, then there will be a lot of sacrifices you would be making which are very essential in your life. If you have a partner who will take the equal responsibility and who is a kind of who owns the startup also, he will have that feeling to like feel the same way you feel about the startup, so he will take 50% of your pain. So you need to understand that you can work alone, but it's always suggested to have a partner. The next important thing why you shouldn't be working alone is you need to have, like, when you work with a different person, you have a complementary benefit, or both are complementary to the startup. So let's say Ram is like, he's so good at operations and he loves his work, and I've not seen any person doing the operational part of any work area so well like he do. And I love my part. I love doing coding, and I'm so much into it that when I sit back for that, I will be not even aware where I'm sitting, or I'll be doing it for hours and hours. So this complementary nature of both the people, if they combine and they have the synergy to make things work, and that's why finding a partner is always a better solution. And be careful when you find a partner. Like, I also thought initially I would do startup with this person or that person, okay, but you need to choose that person wisely, because there shouldn't be, like, I thought of doing startup earlier, before Ram. I thought of doing a partnership, maybe not exactly startup, but earlier I used to figure out the problem. So there were people with whom I was having difference of opinion. There are people who were like kind of talented but not hardworking, and there were people who were hardworking but they were too much dependent on me to do things in terms of like I have to push them. So it might not work. You need to experiment, but you need to choose that person wisely. Second is, it's never too late to learn something new. So again, like, the tech world is something difficult to crack for people coming from our community, and I must say that you shouldn't be like, you shouldn't consider that as a big wall between you and the thing you are trying to achieve. And learning a new thing is always, you should have that adaptability to learn wherever it is super important for your company, for your business. Because like Elon Musk, he had many startups, okay, X.com, PayPal, and then this SpaceX and Tesla. So when he was when he was starting SpaceX, he took 2 years to learn everything about rockets. And rockets are so difficult to understand. This aeronautical science and astronomy, both are difficult subject to learn, and it is too technical, and he cracked that. And if he can do to that level, he can go to that level, then these like tech part and other things are not that difficult to do. So the attitude should be that, okay, you have spent 5 years into chartered accountancy, that's fair. It's not your domain, okay, you shouldn't be working on that. But you see something is so important and so evident that you need to adapt it, then you should not think that it's too late to learn. So you need to develop that skill, learn. Everything is available on the internet, and the future is probably mostly it will go through, like, things will move with AI. So you need to be equipped into that segment as well. Experiment a lot. Startup is all about experimenting. So you have one feature, you launch it, and just see how the customers are reacting to it. If they are saying it, okay, it's good, you can keep the feature and work on the next. And then you experiment another thing. So certain experiments will go right, certain experiments will not go right. So OpenAI CEO Sam Altman says that you should be doing things that work more, and you should be doing things that shouldn't be doing like you should be doing things which work more is only possible when you try to experiment more and create a feedback loop from the customer, and that will give you the suggestion or the way forward where you have to go. And if you get any idea, experiment it, okay, implement it. It will just take time. If it goes right, then it can really make wonders. So you need to be experimental in your startup. Be willing to take calculated risk, otherwise it would be very difficult to grow. So this happened with us. Like I told you, we got one big assignment. We were not managing audits earlier, but we kind of like, we know how hardworking we have been earlier, so we know we can take that, and we took that risk. And the assignment which we got was the biggest of all ever received by long shot. So it was like covering 50 to 60% turnover for that year. Okay, and we took that risk of managing 250 people by 4 people in our company, and we grew. I am not telling you to take illogical risk. You need to calculate the risk, and if you don't have to be so much risk averse when you're doing something which is kind of, the probability of that is not normal, that there can be a situation of risk, then you should calculate it and you should move forward and don't be so risk averse. Okay, invest in enduring solutions that have long-term impact, and don't be lured by short-term profits, and because that will divert you from your true purpose. I'll tell you this by an example. Okay, so let's say you have a firm, okay, which is into GST, and your long-term goal is to become the best firm in the city or the state or in India, and your only objective is to become the best firm in GST and nothing else, because specialization gives you the competitive advantage. That's like universal truth. Okay, so that will give you the competitive advantage, and it will give you the long-term most benefit out of any other option. And in the initial days, you're earning like 1 to 1.5 lakhs a month. But in a random time of the year, once you got, not every year, but once you got, let's say, 5 lakh rupees assignment from a listed entity, but that is not GST, that is statutory audit. Now, the question is whether you're a long-term person and you think in a long-term way is decided by the factor whether you take this assignment or not. So if you have a long-term vision that you're super focused to create a GST firm, which will be a renowned and reputed firms, which will have a competitive advantage, that's your goal. And if you are choosing the short-term profit, the problem is you will be lured by that. And this happens multiple times and we are not aware about this. That 5 lakh rupees will definitely give you an extra puff or that extra rupees, but it will waste a lot of time. Okay, or maybe sometime, but if you have that habit of going out of the direction and be lured by short-term profit, then your long-term vision will get hurt, because the long-term growth will ultimately give you the scalability which you want, which you're looking at. So I must say that you should be focused on your true purpose, and you shouldn't be taking the short-term profits as the objective, and you should be focused on long-term growth. Okay, so this is another learning to make a system-driven company. I'll give you an example so let's say if you are not making a system-driven company, so what will happen that your company firm may be giving a service which is technical in nature. So you are hiring employees for that. You don't have a process, you are just dependent on the employee to get the work done. So you will be like too much dependent on the employees to get your work done. And let's say the employee will be with you around maybe 6 months, maybe 1 year, or maybe maximum 3 years or 5 years. But you see the number of people leaving organization is not much. The average median or average number of years will be pretty much less. So the person will have to be replaced. So if you're making a company which is human driven, that is dependent on employees and people, then you will not scale. Okay, and the problem is, if you have a churning ratio in the company, like people are leaving your organization in some interval of time, definitely they will leave, because that's the average. Normally average organization people will leave. But you don't have a system driven company, means you don't have like, for the work to be done, you're not dependent on the technical skills of the person. So you need to always focus on making automations, making processes, making simple processes, so that every person in the organization, even without technical skills, can do that. And if you replace that person, it will be very much easy to replace. So employees with expertise are very hard to replace, because you spend a lot of time in training them, and they take that expertise with them, and they are difficult to replace. So just be focused on making processes and a system driven company. Okay, so work on standard products and not customized solution. So I will give you an example about this. So let's say you have 10 different clients, and you are into risk advisory, internal audit. So the first client asks you and says that, okay, you do audit is fine, but we want the reporting in this format only. I'm talking about internal audit. Okay, so they want it in a particular format. The second client comes and he says, okay, your approach doesn't seems to be right. I want the audit to be done in this way, which you are not doing, but because of the client, you will do. The third one says, okay, my industry is pretty much different, so you need to hire a person separately for me to do this assignment. Okay, so there'll be like other remaining 7 which will come with their customized problem. Now, if you're working with the customized solutions, the problem is, how will you scale? If you want to scale, you need to have a standard product which everybody can follow. Because if you have people, let's say 3 people deployed to one client, and you want to again grow the company, you need to hire more people and then train them. And let's say some of the employees leave, then you will be in a chaos to train these people. All the time will be spent in training the people and get the work done, and the scalability will not be a focus. Plus, your solution will not have any competitive advantage, because only the people with expertise are working on your company. So if they leave, then you will not have any competitive advantage. So you need to focus on building a standard solution, like, this is our service, we don't deviate from that, and try to make it as perfect as possible. Okay, and go in a service that serves 80% of the market. So you take a problem, create your niche. Okay, that should be the product which is not in the market. You have competitive advantage, nobody else is doing that. Work on that and make it so perfect that everybody would be willing to take it. And if somebody comes with a customization, say a straight no, that okay, we don't do customization, this is the service. Because with this, a simple process or a simple product in the company, you will not be dependent on the employees. So let's say even if the employees leave, then also it will not hurt you. For example, Zoho, they don't hire people with high qualifications. Okay, they will be okay to hire people with 12th pass. So they know that their systems and processes are so simple that even the 12th pass can follow that. And even at Longshot, we have always made sure to make the process as simple as possible, so that a person who is replaced can understand how to follow that process in no time. So this has always been the objective. So focus on standard product, okay, which is common organization wide, and make it very perfect. Okay, and then things and processes will be so easier to manage, and that way you will grow. And then you can focus on the scalability, because standard product will be easy to grow, and customized solution will be like, the companies previously, they had this competitive advantage, like other companies who are giving customized solutions. But now you need to have a niche. Okay, so this this actually in the first startup when we were doing long short labor, we thought the idea is crazy, and if we tell that idea to anybody else, so we have to be very quiet about it, that not to tell anybody about this, because if we tell anybody about this, then what will happen? They will copy our idea, they will execute it, they will become $1 billion company, and everything comes in our mind. So that's all impractical thoughts, because nobody has the time to just go with your idea and do that, go and build a startup on the top of that, unless you have a crazy idea like we have seen in the taxi industries and all, and like Swiggy, Zomato kind of thing. If you have crazy ideas, probability is mostly people will not have that kind of idea to be kind of copied, and it will be upfront to be copied. So, and if let's say you come up with the idea, the probability of you being copied is definitely 100%, because for every crazy idea there will be a copy. Like Uber has Ola, Zomato has Swiggy, so you will be copied at one point of time. So if you are secretive about your startup, that will hurt you and not benefit you. On the other way, if you are talking about your startup, okay, if you talk with people, so you will get a different perspective about your product, about your service, and what they have to bring on the table. So you're all missing on this part. So whatever crazy idea you have, you will be copied if it is too crazy. And uh, if you have any idea, you should be open to talk to people and take suggestions, and that will definitely help you. So learn automation and delegation, and this is the last part of the presentation. I have to stress on this. So see, if you, let's say you are working in any, maybe you are into practice, maybe you are into running your own business, maybe you're even doing job. So if the time given, you are doing a task day by day, exactly same task. And if you have the power of automation, if you are a business, if you're a practicing firm, you should have, if you are not able to do it on your own, you should have a person hired to do automation all the time. And that is like, it's a suggestion, and it will definitely give you a long-term competitive advantage. Because once you spend, let's say I do a work every day for 3 hours, okay, and it will be done every day for 3 hours. So for in a month's time, I will be expending like 90 hours. But if I can automate by sitting 8 to 12 hours on that, because I have the competency, or you can hire that person, then you are saving 90 hours per month. And if you calculate it throughout the year, the when you'll go in the infinite future, that time will compound. And the only finite thing in the world is not money, it's time. So you have to save that. And with automation, you will have the competitive advantage in the long run. So you should always think like, how can I save time? How can I automate? And I'm like super focused on asking all the chartered accountants to go into the tech world and try to like work in that area, because that is very essential these days. And if you're not doing, then the problem is with, we might lose the competition which will be coming ahead and which is already here. So we should be super focused on automation. And let's say out of 100 activities in your organization, only 70% things can be automated, then 30% cannot be automated, because you are the company's entrepreneur or founder, or you are the main partner. You are not there to execute things, okay? You have to delegate it. Before delegation, I must say that before delegation, make the simplest process possible for your employees to follow. If you delegate it haphazardly, the employees might not be following the best process. And if they are not following the best process, so let's say the activity takes 4 hours and you just delegated it, and you didn't try to figure out the shortest way possible, and all these activities are repetitive in nature, it will be throughout the year. So you don't reduce the time with the best offline process, not the automated, or like I'm talking about the process which can only be done by human. Okay, so you have to reduce that time, make the simplest process possible, and then delegate it. Because if you'll save 2 hours of the employee, okay, and then it will be a compound, it will give a compounding effects in terms of time saved for the employee, plus you will have a impact on the payroll. So this was the most important point to take away, that learn automation and delegation. And because founders and entrepreneurs are all about, they are there to make strategies, they are not there to execute things. So you need to, at one point of time, delegate things if it is not being automated. And there will be a third layer, that will be AI in between, which will be like in the coming future. First we'll try to automate, if it is not happening, AI, and then it will be delegation. So that part is also being taken away from humans. So this was it for the presentation. And 1 minute. So I don't know if the coordinators might be having questions coming from, because this is not an interactive session. I might be getting questions. So if some of the questions are not addressed, you can mail us on this email ID. Even we have the number, you can WhatsApp directly, and you can be connected with me. You can check and ask my name, Ashutosh. So you can be connected and you can ask your questions. I'll be happy to answer all your queries. And if you want a different session in terms of how to crack the tech world and all, I'll be happy to share that part also. So thank you very much for having me here. And I hope it was a fruitful session, and you were kind of inspired to do something in the startup world and bend the reality of startup world, coming from our community. So thank you for your time. So I'm ready for the questions if anybody has any question.
Thank you, Ashutosh, for this wonderful journey of yours. I appreciate it has been a very rocky journey with a lot of ups and downs, throughout. But
Yeah.
I'm happy that at the end of the day, you have something built up and to this level. I think you took us well through your journey, and most of the questions that came up were already answered by you. But there are certain questions that I would like to check from you is how much time is too much time, as a gestation period, for a founder. Do you think there should be a time limit, maybe 2 years or maybe two startups or three startups that one should wait for, before deciding, okay, now, this is not going to work for me and probably I should look at some alternates now?
Yes. Okay, I'll tell you. See, when I started thinking about businesses, at the age of 16, I was acquainted with the business. Okay. That point of time, I thought that I should go and do directly, go into business and do it. Okay. But I don't come from you can say, I come from a family background where finances were issue. So at that point of time, I couldn't take that risk. And then after becoming chartered accountant, even between the articleship, I thought now I should go 100%, leaving behind the course. I thought that point of time, but also I stopped that during that time. And then when I finally cleared, and that was the time, again, I was thinking I have to do it. And, we started, I started this company with Ram when I was around 24, and the time was actually running out of our hands because we cannot delay more. And now it's not the question about what you are trying to do. Okay, it's more of you don't have time to think. Now, whatever comes in your mind, because you need to do this, just go and execute it. And with the execution only, you'll get to know whether it will work or not. You cannot fix a timeline, like it will take how many years or how much time, whether this is working or not, but you will have pretty much good idea when you will actually execute whether this will work or not. So I told you, like, we started the first startup and we realized in 9 months that it will not work. Unless we would have done the first startup, we would have never started the second startup, because we learned a lot of you can say things from first startup, and then we learned. So the only takeaway is you don't have to think that I will do this startup or how or whether I should go in this market or will I make mistake, or this market is small. Whatever comes to your mind, just start that. Execution is the key here, because you are just thinking, you are in that process of thinking, you're not executing. Once you execute, you will realize whether this thing will work or not. And if it is not working, for us, we were like super lucky that the second thing worked. Okay, and we might be doing more startups in the future, but This normally doesn't happen. So you should be ready to fail, experiment, fail, and then experiment, improve, fail. But at one point of time, definitely you'll succeed, and you have to just succeed once, and you don't have to succeed many times. It's only once you have to succeed and things will resolve. Okay, so you have to be so persistent at trying things and go and do execution. Okay, don't just think in your brain that, okay, this will work, or whether I should start this or not. And I'm telling you, you don't need to have funds to do that. You need to only have hard work. And what I call is, like, Ram is so good at doing that jugaad kind of thing. So you need to be smart enough to do that. And you need to have a person, if you are not, if you are shy enough to do all those things, but you need to have a person in your team, which I was luckily having. He can handle so many things without expending any money. Okay, so it's about execution. And if you say that how much time to be given to a startup, you will realize that, okay, this is the level it can grow. After that, it cannot grow. So this is the time to do next startup. Okay, this also comes. You're in the stagnation situation, or things are like moving slowly and you are not exponentially growing. It's fine. You take that thing. Okay, this is not growing. I will either delegate it, automate it, or I will not do it if it is not required, and I'll jump onto something more interesting. And that's the way we should be looking over it.
Sure, sure. So another question that comes up is, do you think that the techies or maybe the engineers or, those kind of, people with having different background who have an edge compared to CAs for doing a startup? Do you think, I mean, what is your thought on it?
This is a very good question. I missed it adding in the presentation. Actually, we tried it when we were doing second startup. So Ram's flatmate was an engineer, okay, core developer. He has studied in engineering, and we asked him to just make a website. He took 3 days, 4 days. There was no website, and no, I'm taking part in the tech part of my company, but Ram made the website in less than 6 hours. So you need to, this is a reality check, that we always feel that the person is having a competitive advantage. But the reality is when you put so much hard work into it, because I have my engineering friends. Okay, he says that he's an engineer, he's a core developer. So a few years back, or 1 or 2 years back, we were stuck with a problem, and I was not having the technical competency during that time. So I told him to come up with this, like we were trying to crack a problem where we have to make automation integrated with a desktop solution to the cloud. And this was not being done on the internet much. So I took his help. He was not able to do it. Okay. And he was able to, when he did, was something which was not even helpful. After 1 or 2 years, I was able to do it. Okay. And during that point of time, he might be having some technical expertise, but with time, I have like outperformed them over the period of time. So it's about, there is no space in the world where you think that you'd have less competitive advantage. You need to be smart. That is kind of essential, but you need to be super hard worker. Because if the other person is spending like 3 hours into something and you're spending like 9 hours, you're already doing 3 times. So what a person can achieve in say 3 years, you will be doing it in a year's time. So you need to, and I'm telling you, it's a reality check. The engineers in our country, I doubt people other than IITians, everybody. We have not interacted much with IITians, but we know few IITians. Okay. But I am telling you, if you have come from this rigorous course and you put your 100%, you will be the best engineers in the world. Okay. So this is a true experience I'm telling you. And this is day in, day out happens. If the engineers are not able to crack that, I am able to crack that. The only thing which I did was to work super hard in solving the problem. I don't like, unless the solution is there, I'll sit for 3 days straight. I'll go on the internet, I'll find anything. I'll talk to GPT like for 7-8 hours unless he's giving me the solution. So determination and perseverance is the key. And any area, like I told you about rockets, how Elon Musk learned about it, it's super technical. You can go on any area and you will create that competitive advantage.
Sure. So, one last question is, I'm not sure whether you guys have investors in your company, but so lately there has been, a lot of recent write downs by a lot of investors. There's been funding winter, as we call. So, any thoughts around that?
See, long shot is more of the business model. If you look over that, it doesn't require funding mainly what we figured out, because it's a profitable company. We work at a certain margin, and from the very beginning we have, because coming from a chartered accountancy background, you're always too much focused on the cost. So this happened with us, and from the start we have kept the cost very low. And even today we will only have surplus in the company. Okay, we will not have a cash burn where we will require funding. And the reality of funding, I must say that people should like, if you can bootstrap, it's the best thing, because when you take that hit without the requirement of getting funded, then there will be a undue pressure from the investors that you have to move things fast, and then you make a mistake. And the mistake goes to a level, you see Byju's and other companies, they have a lot of funding, but then the direction is missed because of that, doing things in a speedy manner. But if you have this luxury of not getting funded and having a bootstrap, and you can come up with a business model which can earn you back during the initial period of the startup, that will be great. And funding, once you are established, funding will not be a concern. People will come back to fund you, and there'll be like many people who will be there to earn out of your startup. Okay, so don't be much focused on funding. I told you, like 14% are the only reasons of failure of startup for the funding. It's not funding. So people give too much weightage to it.
So, if you have time, can we take the last question? And I think
Yes,
you
yes, yes.
already covered it, over
Mhm.
the session. But, if I ask you what are the top three do's and don'ts for for an entrepreneur who's going to start up, so the top three do's and don'ts.
Okay. First thing, okay, don't focus on all your imaginations. Okay, startup is all about, like, you need to execute things. Okay, let me take it like this. First, let's talk about the execution part. So whenever you're trying to think about a startup, you need to start it. Okay, directly start it, don't think much, and you need to work hard from the day one. So execution is the key, and you have to be super hard worker. Okay, hard work is like, I'm telling you, you will not have weekends, you will not have holidays. So you have to be super hard working at your startup. Second is the one was the execution, and second is this perfect product thing. So whenever you are working on a startup, okay, this is like very important, because so many people spend a lot of time in it. When you work on a startup, you work on a product. You need to launch that product as soon as possible and learn from that. Okay, and you need to launch without, you can say, a app. So the way you can do is, whatever I told you, like for 3 months we started with whatever technology we were having, going on Just Dial and doing that way. Even Dunzo is one of the startup in Mumbai, so they started with a WhatsApp group. Don't be stuck with that. You need to have the technical capabilities at the beginning, but at one point of time you will definitely have. So start with whatever things you have, and try to manage. Don't go with the perfection. Okay, we will have this particular app and it will be having a competitive advantage, and you are coming with the final version of the application. You have spent all the money in the startup. So you have to just start with whatever things you have, and then you have to learn from the market, learn from the people, and then put your brains and research.
Are you suggesting that we have a prototype or a beta version and maybe test it on a smaller version before going?
Yes,
You know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, never go on the final version. Just have the minimum functionalities in any product. Okay, bare minimum. I'm saying, if you can start, if you can think like it will take 3 months for the final product, come up with in 15 days the basic functionalities of the app and launch it.
Okay.
Because there's nothing like permanency in the market. Okay, once you have the bad product, it's not like, because you are testing it on so small number of people and you're learning from them, right? So you're learning from them, you're taking feedback, then you will improve, and gradually your users will increase, and that's the way it should be. and
Sure.
and so the third thing is, don't be bound by limitation. Okay, if you are getting a hurdle, you have to, it means more in terms of what we had was a tech co-founder problem. So you don't have to bound yourself with any hurdle. Whenever you have any problem, okay, which you feel that uh, this is not being solved, then you have to just stick to it to solve until it is solved. Like, you have to take the control yourself and change things. Okay,
Sure.
and you don't have to have like you asked that question, that you don't have to have a think like that you don't have the competitive advantage from other people in the world. It's all about time. That's the finite thing. Okay, if you will value time, always value time, not money. That will come one, maybe not now, after some years. But if you're valuing time, saving it today, then definitely you'll really do something worthwhile in the coming years. So focus on time, don't focus on money. Save that time wherever you can. And uh, one question I'll address is, like, I told you the reality of startups to work super hard, but I'll tell you what me and Ram is having whenever we work on a startup. It is so exhilarating and it is so motivating that I feel like working it. For me, it's like sometimes I don't want to even sleep and I have to work. So for me, it was sometimes I code up to morning, and even I don't realize it is morning. And you're so much fulfilled with the satisfaction when you do such kind of things. There can be money, but I guess it's only the numbers after some years you will have that will increase. But the real exhilaration comes from working and solving that problem, and that gives you the satisfaction and go and have that good sleep after you work so hard. So that is essential. And don't look over the hard work is negative, and every minute will be filled with a lot of joy and happiness, and you'll be working on anything which is worthwhile.
Sure. Sure. Completely agree. Completely agree. So I think with this, we have come to the end of a wonderful session.
Okay.
If I can ask Hardik to present a very well-deserved vote of thanks to Ashutosh.
Thank you, Neerav bhai. See, Ashutosh Pathak, it was great to have you over here. You have addressed all the questions and you have given answers to all those questions put upon by Neerav Sukhadia ji. We are great for all the presentation and the insight knowledge on the startup journey, which you and your friend Ram has undertook. And I surely bet you will always cherish this journey for your lifetime.
Yes.
Many entrepreneurs will be benefiting from this webinar. It was pleasure to have you with us. So with this, we will conclude this webinar. Thank you all for attending, and we hope you have learned and enjoyed this presentation. Thank you, everybody over here.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.